Ever feel like you're standing on a fault line, about to see a whole landscape reshaped? That's kind of the energy we're tapping into today. We're going deep into the book of First Samuel, a story crammed with transitions, power, struggles, and ultimately how a kingdom is born. We're using a video summary as our guide, so yeah,
Hang on tight. This is where the Israelite story takes a hard turn.
couldn't have put it better myself. First Samuel, it's not just some standalone tale. It's the bridge between, well, that wild time of the judges and then the monarchy that gets set up under King David. It's huge GE for Israel. Politically, theologically, the whole nine yards.
So we're talking about what a nation forged in the Exodus, right? They make it to the promised land and bam, it's internal chaos, threats all around. I bet you could practically feel that longing back then, for some stability, a leader to pull them together.
That is exactly the setup for Samuel's entrance. But his story's all tangled up with two other big names, Saul and David. The way the book weaves their stories together, it's like it's showing us that human hunger for a king, but also how messy leadership can be. It's not all just like crowns and battles, though, is it? There's that real human stuff we still get it today. Wanting a kid, wrestling with pride, that pressure of leadership, timeless.
You got it. That's what hooks us in. Like, take Hannah's story. The pain she felt, being barren in that culture, it jumps off the page. The video even points out how she pours her heart out to God, vows to dedicate her child if he gives her one.
Now that's faith in action, huh? Even when you're hurting like that. But I gotta ask, they really emphasize her song in First Samuel chapter 2. It's like more than a mom being happy, right?
Deep stuff for sure. Hannah's song, it's practically foreshadowing the whole book of First Samuel. It talks about God lifting up the humble, knocking down the proud, even hints at a king coming who's anointed. These ideas, they run through everything that happens.
Ooh, like a sneak peek, a little musical overture before the main drama. And smack dab in the middle of it, there's Samuel. Prophet, leader, but still human. He feels like a turning point for Israel, but man, there's trouble brewing.
You said it. And a big chunk of that trouble wears the name Philistine. Always a threat to Israel's safety, and kind of a symbol of their internal struggles, too.
Speaking of struggles, that battle the video talks about, yikes. Israelites bring the Ark of the Covenant like it's some lucky charm to win the fight. Talk about arrogance.
The Ark was serious business. God's presence with his people, the whole covenant deal, carrying it into battle, that was them presuming they could, twist God's power for their own wins.
The price they paid. Not only do they lose, but the Ark gets captured. God's presence in enemy hands must have felt like the world was ending.
Imagine the theological freakout. If the Ark, the core of their faith, is gone, what does that say about God? Are they really his people? This loss, it forced them to look at all their assumptions about God, their whole relationship with him.
Talk about a lesson in humility, right? It's like God saying, hey, I'm not a puppet you can control. Real faith, it's surrender, not bossing God around.
And that humility versus pride thing, oh, it's going to keep popping up. Just wait till we get to Saul, Israel's first king. But that's a deep dive for another time. All right, so we're back. And the Israelites, they're at a crossroads. They've had these judges, kind of decentralized, but now they want a king, someone strong, someone to, make things stable.
Yeah, almost like they think if they can just fix the outside stuff, the problems on the inside will magically go away. Want a king, like all the cool nations, but the video's right, their reasons are kind of messed up.
It goes deeper than just wanting to fit in, though. They're basically saying, God, we don't want you as our king anymore. They already have a king, Yahweh, wanting this human king. That's straight up projection. They want some guy they can see, someone who will lead in a way they understand.
So what's God do? Just cave and give them what they want, even though he knows it's going to be a train wreck.
Well, he does, but not without, a warning label. Samuel. He's God's prophet, right? He's not happy about this. He lays it out for him, tells him a king could abuse his power, burden him with taxes, even take their sons for the army. Doesn't matter. They've got king fever. Can't see past it.
And that's where Saul comes in, king number one. The video, it plays up how tall he was, his charisma.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why people thought he looks the part.
Right. He's got the kingly look down pat. But as we read on, you see this gap, between the outside and what's really inside. Saul's whole reign. It's a lesson in how success can hide insecurity and disobedience. Big time.
One thing that got me was how he tried to duck out at first. When they're going to make him king, he literally hides. Is that humility or something else?
Interesting, huh? Some folks, they think it was him being humble. Early days, at least. But as he rules, you see this pattern. Self-doubt, worrying what people think, and in the end, not listening to God.
Yeah, and the video zooms in on him messing up. right before a battle with those Philistines.
Mm.
God tells him, wait for Samuel to do the sacrifice thing. But Saul's like, nope, I'm impatient, gonna do it my way.
That right there, turning point, shows us what's wrong with Saul. He doesn't trust God's timing and he'll compromise just to get what he wants faster. He's more afraid of people than he is of God.
And he keeps doing this over and over. Like with the Amalekites, God says, wipe them out. Saul's like, nah, I'll keep some of the good stuff. Disobeys again.
Exactly. It's not just about breaking rules. It's that Saul's heart, it's not given over to God. His wants, his fears, they win out over what God told him to do.
And man, he pays the price. God's not with him anymore. That guiding spirit's gone. A bad spirit takes its place, torments him. Sad ending for a guy who started strong.
Saul's whole deal. It teaches us being a leader, it ain't about looks or winning battles. It's about character, doing what's right, and always, always putting God's will first.
So while Saul's going down in flames, we meet this young shepherd, David. Talk about a 180. What's so different about this guy?
David, he's everything Saul isn't. Humble, obedient, totally devoted to God. Even before the Goliath showdown, you see it. He's brave, but not in himself. He trusts God's power. That's where his confidence comes from.
The video, it nails the drama of that whole fight, doesn't it? Shepherd kid, sling in hand, up against Goliath. Talk about underdog story.
It shows how God uses the least likely person to do his will. David winning. That's not just muscles, that's faith. Pure guts, trusting God when everyone else is freaking out.
But it's not a one-hit wonder, is it? David's the real deal, even when Saul's hunting him down. Could have killed Saul tons of times, taken the throne.
Yeah.
But nope.
That's integrity right there.
Yeah.
And he gets that God's in control. He trusts God to make him king at the right time. That's tough for us to swallow, right? We want everything now.
Seems like patience is kind of a theme in 1 Samuel. Hannah waiting for a kid, Saul not waiting, and David just taking the heat, biding his time.
It tells us we got to get on God's schedule, not our own. Trust. He's working, even when we can't see it. Saul, impatient, wants to control everything, and it wrecks him. David waits on God, and it sets him up for greatness. But even his road to the throne, it ain't a picnic. Got more twists and turns coming. We'll get to that in the last part of our deep dive.
All right, we're back. Final chapter of our 1 Samuel journey. Phew, what a ride. From those wild judge days to Saul's rocky time as king, and now David on the rise. Feels like each story, it's like peeling back another layer. We see stuff about leadership, faith, what it means to be human, deep stuff.
Couldn't agree more. And as we wrap this up, I think we got to step back from just the story itself. Ask ourselves, what's the lasting impact of 1 Samuel? How does this old book speak to us now?
Yeah, I mean, that pride thing, it just jumps out, right? Saul's fall from grace, almost like Shakespearean tragedy, consumed by his own insecurities and it leads to all these bad choices. Makes you think, doesn't it?
For sure. Pride sneaky can show up in ways we don't expect. Not always some big ego trip. Sometimes it's that inability to say, hey, I need help, or to trust something bigger than ourselves. That's where Saul tripped up hard.
And it's so interesting, right, how the book, it puts Saul's pride next to David's humility. Like, it's not just that David was a good dude. It's deeper than that, almost a theological thing.
Exactly. David being humble, it wasn't just his personality. It came from him knowing God was in control. He got that real strength. It meant lining up with God's will, not pushing your own agenda.
Even when he was, chosen to be king, he saw himself as more of a caretaker, not some ruler who made it all on his own. That seems key, right? Not just to him succeeding, but to why we still talk about him today.
Right on. And that takes us to another big takeaway from 1 Samuel, trusting God's timing. Think about those years David's running, hiding from Saul. So many chances to get revenge, take the throne by force, but he doesn't.
Shows his patience, yeah, but his faith, too. He believed God picked him, that God would make him king when the time was right. That's a tough one for us these days, huh? We want everything yesterday.
So true. We're all about speed, instant results, but with spiritual growth, it's different. David's story, it reminds us sometimes waiting, putting God's plan ahead of our own, that's the bravest thing we can do.
It's not just sitting around twiddling your thumbs, though, is it? Those Psalms David wrote, when he was on the run, they're powerful. He's real, pouring out his sadness, doubts, but he always comes back to trusting God's good.
You can feel him in those Psalms, wrestling with God, finding peace in God, even when things are bad. It's like a guide for us, how to go through tough times. We don't got to pretend everything's fine. Bring our fears to God, straight up. He's listening.
Wrapping up this deep dive, I gotta say, 1 Samuel isn't just some history lesson. It's like a mirror showing us our struggles, what we want out of life. We see bits of ourselves in Saul's mess, David's loyalty, Hannah's longing for something more.
That's how you know the Bible's the real deal. It's not stuck in the past. It speaks to, like, the core of who we are no matter what. So as we close out, think about this. Where do you see these themes in your life? What are you clinging to, white-knuckled? Where do you need to let go? Trust God's got this, and he's got you.
It's been amazing breaking down 1 Samuel with you all. We've seen kings rise and fall, the power of humility, why trusting God's timing matters, and I hope you're walking away like me, seeing how these old stories are still so alive, still speaking to us. Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, keep diving deep,